Howdy, folks, howdy. Let's take the story to the most coolest place on Earth, Canada. My neighbor to the north. Pretty close by me because I live in Buffalo, you know. Weather here is like, you know, I'm not sure where our bad weather comes from. I'm not blaming Canada, I'm blaming the world. Weather's been nice so far though, because, well, it should be. We're almost to the middle of May now, so. Yep. Let's see, what's this? The meeting started at 1:45 p.m. 1:45 p.m. local time. Let me check if that's right. Yeah, 1:40 p.m. local time. Local time. The guests, the participants, are allowed a light lunch. Had time for a light lunch first, which everyone but Wilhelmina ate in the same room, and Wilhelmina didn't eat with the eat before or after the meeting, at least in the presence of Allied officers. She likely didn't trust in a food prepared by here, at least prepared by the facility's cooks, as though they tried to poison or knock her out and cart her off to some secret lab somewhere. It was a reasonable fear. And the Allied governments had used a lot of underhanded tactics to acquire superhumans, to get superhumans into captivity. There had been superhumans had been betrayed plenty of times. Most superhumans had experiences with prejudice, betrayal, and sometimes very bloody attempts to capture them. Gromyia herself, a fair number of capture attempts, but the most recent round conducted by none other than Dominique Wirth herself. Keep forgetting she's married to another of my characters. I wonder if I'll depict the wedding in some chapter sometime. I don't know. I mean, it's funny. You have a lot of romance stories where they don't even talk about the wedding or any of those important matrimonial things. But it's fine. You most likely saw the characters fall in love, and that's the most important thing in my view. Everything else is just like ceremony. Many of the Dominique had been trying to capture Wilhelmina to convince her to join the fight against the Jade. The Jade had proven to be the Jade. The Allied leadership, their ship, offered to join. Pass offer. I'll have to mention that. I'll make sure I did. The Allied leadership wondered why Wilhelmina finally decided to join the righteous side. I almost said the right side of history. That term's almost become poison today because, well, I don't know. It's been exploitive. It's become like a, I don't know, what's the term? Reason d'etre? Or something. Like, I don't know. To people who, like the communists and stuff, far left types who think, you know, the communist revolution is at hand and all that stuff. And anyone who goes against it is on the wrong side of history. Well, I'm not in favor of a communist revolution. Maybe at one point I was leaning that way, mostly because I didn't like rich people. Honestly. I mean, I'm sure everyone who's had a bad boss or something has fantasized about some revolution rounding up all the rich people and, you know, giving them the Great Purge treatment. But in the end, it wouldn't be good for anyone, I guess, because everyone would end up purged or stuck in a labor camp somewhere. You learn about these things if you learn about the history of communism, folks. It's very bad, a very grim history. What had changed? The Allied leadership, the Allied officers at the meeting, was a mix of civilian and military personnel. There were some very powerful people, but most were deemed destined to only get a brief mention in the history books if they were so lucky. Most likely, they just get mentioned because of their part in this historic meeting. My grandpa wants to make fried chicken wings tonight. I don't know if I should make them bread or just fry them up. Fry them up would be the simplest thing, you know, like regular wings you get. But breading them, a little more effort, maybe a little better, you know, better tasting. Yeah, it's like I think that the amount of effort you put into a meal affects how tasty it is, at least psychologically. Like, I mean, if you work all day on a meal, your brain's probably gonna convince you that it's the tastiest thing you've ever eaten. That's why I think the human brain is a very amazing instrument. Sometimes I'm shocked that it's so fragile, you know? That so many things can go wrong with it. So many people die of, like, strokes and stuff, you know? I think the brain would be a hardier organ. And it is an organ, I think, by definition. I don't want to get into the whole mind versus brain, like, where is the consciousness located? Is the consciousness the soul? All that stuff. It confuses me profoundly. I kind of lean on, don't believe in afterlife. I kind of lean on when the brain dies, that's it for the person, you know. Unless you do some Frankenstein thing someday and take the brain out and get it back to work somehow. I don't know. And the chairman of the meeting was the leader of the chairman of the meeting was OSA chieftain Bradley Lee Donovan, future founder and first leader of the and first chief of the CIA. CIA, an organization that was quite famous for going rogue. CIA gone rogue? I don't know. What's that? How many movies have we seen where the CIA goes rogue? Plenty. former first chief of the SAA. He was us. Donovan was considered a wild card sort. Or almost like someone plucked out of the days of the Old West. Some sheriff who wasn't afraid to take down any outlaw that came to cause trouble in his town. I wonder if there's any old western shows that are just like that, you know, just has some sheriff in a town and he deals with whatever problems come to town. It's an idea, you know, limitless possibilities, you know. At least I think so. It reminds me of a lot of those Disney shows from when I was a kid, where it was just like the bad guys were always coming to the heroes part in the woods, you know. It's like if the bad guys didn't come to town, they wouldn't have any trouble with the heroes, you know. It's like with the comics. If you don't go to New York City, you don't have to worry about Spider-Man, you know? Or, I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of other heroes in New York City in the Marvel comics, but I don't know. It's like the main city of the universe. In that universe, it kind of would, if I was me in charge, probably go with a fictional city or something. Or, you know, more than one major location for the stories. You can't have everything happen in New York City. That gets annoying. Like, come on, every crazy thing in the world happens in New York City. Let's see. Came to cause... Afraid to take down any outlaw that came to cause trouble in his town. He had a wild beard. He had wild, fiery red hair. A thick beard. Once a mustache. And dark brown eyes. Big, dark brown eyes. He had been some sort of agent back in the Great War, serving under Chromish leadership. I don't think there's going to be any action in this scene, folks. It's unfortunate because kind of feel like I don't do much proper writing if I don't have like one action scene somewhere, you know? Chromish leadership. Was Mike the only one? Mike talked first. I checked that already, but you know, if something gets your goat, you should check it a few times. Like, your brain's telling you something. Something's wrong with this thing. You gotta check it out. And yeah, okay. That goes for writing and for personal health, I guess. Serving under Chromish leadership. Chromish leadership. He survived the war with all his limbs, toes, and fingers intact. He learned a lot about the proper way to run an intelligence agency from his experience with Chromish. When World War III started, World War III being World War II in this universe. World War II in this universe, as in the war between the Great War and the Hitler-type World War II. That was like a war in South America between communists and Democrats, I guess. I think, well, you know, South America at the time, 1920s, mostly authoritarian, and came up with like but you know, still better than communism. Really. It's hard to believe, but I'm pretty sure those authoritarian regimes of South America, even the more infamous ones, were still better than what life would have been like under communism down there. I can imagine the mass graves and trouble, you know, all the terrible things could have been done deep in those jungles away from prying eyes, you know. not like when World War II and the Holocaust, when that happened right in the heart of Europe and anyone could see what was going on, you know. When World War III started. Zeta had the USZ had a very weak intelligence service, especially compared to its hostile neighbor, CZ, the DCZ, Dominionist States of Zeta. Donovan wasn't afraid to say that the leadership of Zeta was asleep at the wheel. And he credited himself often. And he often accredited himself. With waking up the driver and taking the wheel and keeping the car from going off a bridge into a river. Credited, yeah. I think that's the right term. Attributed, qualified, recognized, endorsed. Yeah, he endorsed himself. Thank God I was here to save all your asses. You're welcome, America. I saw that in an ad today, something with McDonald's. Like, it's not a... I'm no ad executive, but it doesn't seem smart to say... to pretend like the audience is saying thank you and then say you're welcome, because that seems kind of off. Like, you're welcome. If someone does that to you in real life, you'd think it was obnoxious. Of course, maybe obnoxious is where we're heading. Obnoxious ads, obnoxious behavior. I remember that was big in the 90s. Having ads that were intentionally hostile to the consumer. Actually, I think there's too much hostility towards consumers these days, but, you know, that's just me. It's all that communist thinking, like, you can't make a decision for yourself. We'll make the decision for you, so just buy our product and shut up. That's the way the video game industry is acting. Probably others. I don't think a writer could get away with acting like that. This is the best book on the market. Buy it, you shit eater. Yeah, that wouldn't sell. I don't think that would sell any copies, except maybe someone wants to be spiteful. You know what I mean? Let's see. Bradley Donovan built up the OSS. Built up the OSS, modeling it after the Chromish SOE. The SOE and OSA had the twin objective of conducting major operations behind a brand sabotage, conducting clandestine operations behind Bluddka lines in occupied Europe. Sabotage, assassination, building up spy networks, building up resistance networks, keeping the equalists in check. I think maybe equalist is too effective a term. Because, I mean, you know, it sounds better, it's more understandable than communism, I think, as a word. Like, oh, they want everyone to be equal. Yes, well, in communism, everyone is equally miserable. So, yeah. I guess it's a good thing that they chose the word communism instead of equalism. Although maybe that would sound bad in another language, I don't know. Keeping the equalists in check, as they were the masters of, as they controlled the lion's share of underground networks. Works in the Great War during World War III. Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure why, but, you know, communists didn't have any trouble getting willing recruits. It seemed like the democracies were I don't know, less appealing for some reason. Maybe because they seemed so weak and ineffectual at the time. Yeah, well, I mean, when you have the choice between that and two strong ideologies, you know, are you gonna go with the feckless weakling ideology that allowed the fascism to take over so much without any fight, and then the French got defeated, and, well, you know, maybe if France was a communist state, things would have been a little different. I don't know. It seems like there's communism didn't have any shortage of people willing to die for that ideology back in World War II era. Less today, though, thankfully. Let's see. They had both organizations had complicated legacies. Did I say the CIA replaced them? I think I changed it to the CIA. Had complicated legacies, and some wondered if they were as effective as Canada made them out to be, made them seem. Probably not, but you know, in real life, spy organizations, they often had influence because they were so unknown, you know. You never knew who was an Allied agent or not. And that, you know, the Nazis and the Soviets were very paranoid about such things. Now then, the war with the Jade ballooned the resources of the SOE and OSA when both had been on the verge of being dissolved when the Volgans declared war on Europe in 46, and there had been talk of dissolving both in the short peace between the ceasefire with the Volgans, no armistice with them yet technically. You know, no armistice between North and South Korea, but I mean, they haven't been fighting for the past 50 years straight, you know. And the 1 month war. And the start of the 1 month war. Yeah, I think it was only a month or so, right? I'll check my notes. Ballooned? SOE and OSA were both disbanded after the Jade War. With OSA being must have started earlier today than usual because it's the clock almost matches my recording session time. Usually there's like a 5 or 10 minute gap because, you know, I gotta get the YouTube on. I don't trust this computer not to handle this, you know, so I gotta upload the YouTube session before I start writing because sometimes this program I'm using goes crazy. So they were both disbanded after the Jade War with the OSS becoming the CIA and the CIA intro check. And the SOE being absorbed into the various MI services, the various famous, not famous, MI services of the Cromish government. Okay, folks, signing off here. Have a nice day. Didn't really write anything noteworthy, did we?